Hey guys, I'm ImNxi and I'm an ex-LCS Academy player streaming every day on Twitch. I've peaked High Challenger at rank 6 and I mostly play Lee Sin and Bel'Veth to climb. If you didn't know, Lee Sin is globally the highest pick rate jungler in Season 13, so this Season 14 Lee Sin guide is going to show you how much he's changing because there's a lot of new changes that are coming ahead. In Season 13, Lee Sin was really strong because of his previous build path. He could stat check a lot of junglers with just rushing Gore Drinker. Lee Sin is one of the best users of Gore, which made his one item power spike even stronger. Unfortunately though, for Season 14, Gore Drinker is completely removed from the game. Black Cleaver was also nerfed from 30% armor pen to 24% at max stacks, and these two items were essential for Lee Sin in Season 13. There are a lot of people wondering what to build now in Season 14, and I've extensively tested everything. Let's start off with what I don't like. I tried out all the new Hydra items, and unfortunately for junglers, those items are really expensive and you probably won't need any of them as a rush, since jungle clearing will still be relatively easy with the AoE jungle pets. I know losing Iron Spike Whip is gonna blow, but I think it should still be fine without it, and you definitely won't need an item like Tiamat because it'll just delay your early game power spikes a lot. In Season 14, Eclipse feels like the best first item rush on Lee Sin. With the item costing 2700 gold, giving 70 AD, 15 ability haste, and the Eclipse passive, the item is essentially just Warrior's enchantment from a few years back. For reference, old Warriors gave 60 AD and 10% CDR while costing 25 gold, and those of you back then that played, I'm sure you remember how good the item was. For jungle, an ideal first base is always going to be 1100 gold for a Warhammer on Lee Sin. If you can't make a play, just do a standard full clear and get 875 gold for a pickaxe. Both of these components build into Eclipse, which makes it a super solid item to rush, giving you an insane early game power spike with good early game components. After Eclipse, the build should still pivot into Black Cleaver, and I'm sure a lot of you are wondering whether or not Shojin is a better second item, and I can confidently say it's not. If you guys remember Jarvan being very broken in the past few months with Shojin as his second item, the reason why Jarvan could build that way was because he had built-in armor pen from his Q. Lee Sin has no armor pen in his kit, and by the time you get your second item, the enemies in the game will have built some sort of armor or just have their base armor by leveling up go up. After Black Cleaver, I would pivot into Maw third even if they have only one AP champion on the enemy team. The flat 65 AD that Maw gives is super good, and the MR will obviously be very useful even if it's only towards that one champion. If they're full AD, I prefer to go Death Stance third, even though Shojin can be good as a third item if you're really fed. I don't like Sterix as an item just because on Lee Sin, the item essentially pops a big shield when you go in and lets you soak in a lot of damage. But if you want to 1v9 as Lee Sin in solo queue, you don't really ever want to be the one that goes in and kicks the enemy ADC back or just soak damage for your team. You only do that if you have no kills and aren't able to carry. Building full AD reinforces the 1v9 type of style that you have to have in solo queue to win on a champion like Lee Sin. Now, if they're full AP, I still would rush Eclipse, but my second item would probably be a Hex Shrinker, and after Hex Shrinker I wouldn't finish Maw, and I would pivot straight into Black Cleaver and then finish Maw. The reason for this being that Hex Shrinker should give you enough defensive stats, and you still really do need the ability haste and the armor pen that Black Cleaver kind of gives. In my opinion, you should never actually finish Maw second. You should always just go Hex Shrinker into Black Cleaver into Maw. A drawback to Season 14 is that a lot of ability haste did get removed from the items that Lee Sin did like to build, which makes ability haste very scarce now and forces him to build Ionian boots to hit that sweet spot CDR of around 41%. Like I said earlier, if you want to 1v9 as Lee Sin, you need Ionian boots for the CDR, which inherently makes Lee Sin a lot less tanky, even if it really doesn't seem like it. This also really sucks because Alacrity is better than Tenacity as a rune ever since Riot made the Tenacity changes a few patches ago. If you have a game where they're full AD and you go Ninja Tabby, just remember you're probably going to be very susceptible to CC. Side note, in patch 14.2, Riot is going to be adding a new broken rune which gives you 10% tenacity and 10% slow resist in the mini runes. If that goes unchanged when it hits live servers, it'll be a must-have every game for Lee Sin. Well played, Riot. The runes I always take for any tier below Challenger will always be Conqueror into Triumph, into Alacrity, into Coup de Grace. And for Red Tree, I'll go Eyeball Collection and Relentless Hunter. I feel as if Coup de Grace is better to help snowball early games, and Last Stand is just better for late game skirmishes, because I'm sure a bunch of you are wondering why not Last Stand over Coup de Grace even though it does more damage. You do want to accelerate your early game and take over as much as you can to 1v9, which is why I do go Coup de Grace. Now the other part is a bit controversial, and I know every Lee Sin takes inspiration second with Boots plus Cosmic, since Cosmic is really nice for lower smite CDs and lower flash CDs, but I think the value you get from Relentless Hunter at 5 stacks and Eyeball at 10 stacks is insane. At 10 stacks you'll get 8 19 AD, which is about 650 gold in value, so that alone already doubles the value that you get from cosmic boots. You don't need ultimate hunter since Lee Sin's ult is already a giga low cooldown by the time you're level 11 and have CDR items. Treasure hunter is just generally not the best rune because of how much Riot has nerfed it to the ground, and the gold it gives matters less the longer the game goes, and it's pretty unlikely that you'll get all 5 stacks early game. And as for Ingenious Hunter, it is good for Eclipse passive and the Trinket CD, but overall Relentless Hunter provides the most consistent value, which gives you permanent out of combat movement speed, which is insane for a jungler to move around the map a lot and make plays. Relentless gives 45 out of combat movement speed. It's basically just getting free boots. Riot has changed a lot about the map, and it's easier to ward against ganks and how much bigger the lanes are now. At the end of the day, I think people should still realize that it's solo queue. Guys, just remember how many times your laners have died to pinged and warded ganks. People will still die to the ganks. It's gonna be a bit less often now, but it shouldn't be too game breaking. As for grubs, I think with the introduction to grubs, a lot of people will be baited by it. Do not int for grubs. They're only good if you can somehow get 5 or 6, and even then you shouldn't be inting yourself to get them. A lot of times you can use them as bait to get something on the other side of the map, or just playing to fight the enemy team rather than playing for the objective itself. This can also go in your favor. With grubs being introduced, I'm sure a lot of people will int for them, so you can kind of use it as bait to lure the enemy team into fighting you, since Lee Sin loves early game skirmishes, and if they don't fight you, you can get all 6 grubs for free. When you're on these objectives and you see them on vision and you do want to fight, try not to use your Q on the objectives since it's your main damage ability and you do want to have something to turn with. Only do this if you know they're coming to contest it. If you know the enemy jungle isn't there, just take the free grubs and burst it down. As for dragons, it didn't really change all too much, and the hero timer being later kind of hurts early game junglers because the longer the game progresses, the less time you'll kind of have to force the enemy jungle into tough situations like choosing whether or not to give hero early on or fight you. The Baron is buffed and is a lot harder to take, but I don't think this affects Lee Sin too much because from my experience in Iron through Master Tier, teammates refuse to hit the Baron for some weird reason, so I don't think much will change anyways. Teams will still wait until the enemy team is aced and it's completely free before they even attempt to hit it with you. If nothing happens early and no ganks are possible, Lee Sin is still a very strong objective taker since he doesn't really lose that much HP due to his W. If you can't find early fights, don't force it. Just remember to play for objectives because dragon stacking is still a very solid and reliable way to win games if there's no early game fights happening. A really common misconception for Lee Sin is that you need to do 3 camps in gank. Please don't do this. You can still do a very standard full clear and just wait until whether or not a lane is gankable. And as for how to identify a good gank, just try to look for 1 if they have no flash, 2 if they're pushed or not, and 3 if they have no wards and you know your damage output. If your team doesn't let you know enemy flash timers or if it's warded, it's okay to just do a standard full clear and get your pickaxe. You don't have to force anything on Lee Sin because he's very susceptible to falling behind very quickly early game, so you kind of have to be on top of your decision making so the game doesn't get out of your control. As for pathing, Lee Sin can do a lot of different jungle camp clears. Standard clear for Lee Sin is going to be red Krugs Raptors into full clear or blue Gromp Wolves into full clear, and it makes it a lot harder to invade you while giving you enough gold to be back on the map with a pickaxe if nothing happens. Also remember, you can invade as Lee Sin if you know where the enemy started and you know you win the 1v1. Try to make sure you have priority in lanes so that your laners don't get inted by you. I say prio/priority a lot, but what is priority? It's basically when a lane is fully pushed in or about to be pushed in and your laners can actually move without having to lose any CS, or the wave is in a position where the laner can quickly move to help. Lee Sin is also very strong at ganking mid lane. A lot of junglers tend to neglect mid and either gank top or bot because mid is so out of the way, so always pan your camera mid to see if it's gankable. Make sure not to force any ganks early game on Lee, because even if nothing happens the first 4 levels and you're just full clearing, that is completely okay. Lee Sin's level 6 spike is also very strong and you can just farm towards that. I know I say play aggressive, but you should never force it because it's okay to farm and fight after. That's a completely viable way to play early game, so you don't get too far behind and don't force anything. Hardest matchups are usually the ones that can just reliably cancel his Qs, so think about champions like Sejuani, Poppy, Rek'Sai, Gragas, and kinda Trundle, but the reasoning for Trundle is just he can just bash your head in early game. Even non-jungler champions can be very annoying for Lee Sin if they can reliably cancel his Ws and Qs, like Alistar. Luckily, Lee Sin as a champion can easily outplay in a lot of situations, and there are ways to play around it. If you know they can disrupt your Q or W, it's always good to hold your Q and get off free autos and E's to make them panic. since Season 14 is introducing a lot of these AP items, you'll see a lot more AP champions, which is great since Lee Sin does really well against AP champions. Like I said earlier, if they don't have AP champions, or even just one, you can always just sit on Hex Shrinker without needing to fully buy Maul, pivot into Black Cleaver because you need the ability haste to carry fights, and the MR from Hex Shrinker and the passive are more than enough until you can get your Maul. Usually, you'll want to build CDR boots, but only pivot away from Ionian if you really feel like you need Merc Treads. But please know it's going to hinder your playmaking abilities a lot, since losing that CDR from Ionian boots is going to really suck, as you don't get nearly as much from items in Season 14. For common AD champions in the jungle, Graves, Nocturne, Kayn, Viego, Briar, and Jarvan, Lee Sin does well into all these champions, so you shouldn't be too worried if the champions are picked. Now for the most important part on Lee Sin, the mechanics. As Lee Sin, I know it sounds obvious, but hitting your Q is really crucial, but what I really mean by this is don't just throw it out and rush into a fight. Try to see if your teammates can land some type of CC on the enemy team for you to guarantee hitting that Q, or you could just slowly walk towards them, and if they try to juke your Q, they'll kind of be moving side to sides, and you'll easily be able to close distance, and it'll be easier to land your Q that way as well. A really common mistake I see on Lee Sin mains is the way they use their ults. A lot of times, you don't need your ult to kill somebody, especially if you're fed, or the Lee Sins kind of just try to do a flashy play and kick somebody back. Please don't do this, especially if you're the main carry of the game and you're taking all the gold. Lee Sin's ult can be used in a lot of creative ways, and saving it for when you actually need it will be the biggest difference between what makes a good and bad Lee Sin. So as for Lee Sin mechanics, this one is going to be the Q R into Q E whatever, or like Q E auto R Q for the max damage combo. For the next clip, I probably have to like turn CDR off and then just buy the items that I said would be good. So right here it gives about 33% CDR, which kind of blows, but this is the one I was talking about where I hit the Q and then I wait till last second and then I Q again and then my Q should be up, but I guess it's not. So shit, hold on. What if I do like my Q's on a longer CD here, or lower CD? So I do this and then I wait and then it's up again. Maybe I buy like one item of CDR to like kind of show. Okay, so right here, land the Q and then wait till last second until boom, and then my Q is up again. And then the last combo I wanted to do, well, I guess just like showing, I guess you could just like show them just like using Q and then ward hopping out, so like it's kind of, you know, you're slippery in team fights and showing it like that. I don't know if you want to add that side rope where it's just like you do that and then it's just like you just get out. And then I guess you could just show this for ward hopping, you know, like getting really good at it, just knowing your exact like ward hop angle, you know, just like doing stuff like that. Anyways, that basically wraps up my guide for Lee Sin in Season 14. If you have any more questions, just comment below and I'll try my best to answer them. If you want to see more Lee Sin gaming or just high level jungling in general, you can check me out over at twitch.tv/ImNxi, where I will be streaming a lot of my games and answering as many questions as I can. Anyways, that'll pretty much wrap up the video. Thank you for watching and good luck on your rank climb this season. G fucking G, boys.